watches, if you're a new watch buyer, should you look at vintage or should you look at modern?
Do you want to start or you want me to start?
Go ahead.
Yeah. So I think in terms of like price point, it's going to be a big difference on that for me. I like to use Omega. Modern Omega and pre-owned, you're looking at minimum 3K on the very, very low end twos. You can pick up a great Seamaster for 500. You can pick up even some other stuff for a couple $100 in the vintage side of it. Probably keeping time properly, and it doesn't even need anything. So, I think just justification also in terms of modern is it's like a commodity you're buying pretty much instead of buying a piece of horology and a high quality timepiece that did have some aspect of hand finishing still integrated into it. So
I agree to some of that. I think design wise, a lot of modern watch companies has kind of lost a lot. Like when you say commodity, I get what you mean. It's pretty much
That's fine.
it's just like Coca-Cola coming out with a new flavor, right? A new wrapping, it's the same watch. And they look at it as a completely new product. But I think there is also merit to a modern watch. One is that vintage. It takes a lot of education to know what you're getting. There's a lot of fakes, shady Frankensteins out there. Secondly, maintenance. With new watches, it's very hassle-free, at least from my experience. All the modern movements are quite reliable. And when you speak movements, I think they have made pretty significant improvements over the years. Maybe not in the finishing aspect, but as far as power reserve, robustness, you talk about shock resistance, anti-magnetism. I think they made a lot of improvements over the years. So especially for your first watch, if you don't want to spend 3K on a pre-owned Omega, you can always go for Hamilton or a Seiko, right? I do agree that you can get a higher, more prestige brand in vintage for less money. But I think it depends on the buyer.
I want to touch on something that both of you kind of said, and it's like, you can buying secondary with vintage, that there might be Frankenstein watch or something like that out there. But argue the same could be true buying pre-owned for modern watches. Oftentimes a lot of these big brands have super clones, have super fakes, and so that's for buyer peace of mind. Is there more peace of mind going to an authorized dealer, paying a little bit more to get that watch, if that's your concern, or is it still the better value option to go for pre-owned and vintage or modern? That's where the dealer comes in, right?
I think from a long-term perspective, you were talking about movement quality and stuff like that. The big issue, in my opinion, on new is that the brands are trying to take complete control of their service capacity. So they sell you an expensive watch and then they force you to do an expensive service on their terms. They basically send it to Switzerland and they do it locally, but it's like their terms start to finish, and they're, in my opinion, delivering a high level of quality servicing wise, but they're not really having the customer in mind. I think they're trying to squeeze additional money out of the customer after the fact. Whereas with vintage, you have a lot more options and a lot more real watchmaking that can be done on the pieces.